In the West, foxes are often seen as sly tricksters, the perfect example being the fox in Ace of Fables, who, unable to reach the grapes, simply declares them sour. But in Chinese mythology, foxes are far more complicated. The most famous of all is the nine-tailed fox, with 9 flowing tails and the ability to take human form. These beings could appear as either women or men, always strikingly beautiful. Their meaning, however, was never simple. Sometimes they symbolized faithful love and devotion. Sometimes they were sacred creatures, said to appear only during the reign of a wise and virtuous ruler. And sometimes they became dangerous fox spirits, known as Huli Jing, seductive, manipulative, and powerful enough to topple dynasties. So, how did the creature once associated with prosperity, romance, and good fortune become a symbol of temptation and destruction? Today, let's explore the story of the nine-tailed fox. In Chinese mythology, the nine-tailed fox is a legendary creature. In its earliest form, it was a symbol of good fortune, much like other auspicious creatures such as the dragon, the phoenix, the turtle, and the qilin. Archaeological finds even show it standing beside powerful deities. In one 1,800-year-old card break, a nine-tailed fox appears next to the Queen Mother of the West, the ruler of the immortality itself. According to legend, the nine-tailed fox would only appear in times of wise and benevolent rule when the world was at peace. Even its 9 tails carry special meaning. In Chinese culture, the number 9 represents greatness, abundance, and something beyond counting. Because of its ancient connection to the stars, a mystery we'll come back to later, the nine-tailed fox also became a symbol of fertility and many descendants. But over time, its image changed. As beliefs evolved, the nine-tailed fox gradually lost its sacred status and became something far more dangerous, the fox spirit, known as Huli Jing, a beautiful and seductive woman who could charm men and bring disaster. In many stories, the fox spirit was less a monster and more a reflection of society's fears about beauty, power, and influence. Over time, it also became a way to explain the rise of powerful women, especially when beauty, politics, and desire became deeply entangled. One of the famous examples is Daji, the king's consort in the Investiture of the Gods, a classic Chinese mythological novel about the fall of a dynasty and the rise of gods, which also features figures like哪吒. She is often seen as the Eastern version of the classic femme fatale, a woman whose beauty could destroy a dynasty. We'll come back to her story later. So, how did the creature, once seen as a blessing, become a symbol of ruin? To answer that, we have to start at the very beginning, with its origins. The earliest written record of the nine-tailed fox appears more than 2,000 years ago in the ancient Chinese text, the classic of mountains and seas, which reads like a mix of a mythological atlas and a monster guide, mapping a world filled with gods, strange lands, and bizarre creatures. It describes the nine-tailed fox like this. 300 miles farther east lies Mount Qingqiu. Deep in the mountain lives a strange beast. It looks like a fox, but with 9 tails, and its cry sounds like a baby crying. It can devour humans, yet whoever eats its flesh will be protected from evil spirits. And yes, it could eat people, but strangely, if someone ate a fox's flesh, they would become immune to curses and dark supernatural forces. Another passage in the book describes it even more simply: 4 legs and 9 tails. From these early records, we can see that the first image of the nine-tailed fox was not a seductive spirit or a beautiful woman. It was a strange and powerful beast, both feared and revered. People believed it possessed supernatural power. They wanted that power, but they also feared becoming its prey. Its childlike pride may have been imagined as a trap, luring humans closer before attacking. This reflects how ancient people viewed the unknown, with both desire and fear. At a time when nature was still mysterious and dangerous, creatures like the nine-tailed fox became symbols of both wonder and terror. But in the classic of mountains and seas, the story ends there. The book only records its appearance and some abilities. The nine-tailed fox did not truly step onto the mythological stage until it became part of a famous love story, one connected to the Yu, the Great, the legendary founder of the Xia Dynasty, the first dynasty in Chinese history, dating back nearly 4,000 years. In ancient China, a great flood swept across the land, drowning homes and forcing people to flee. A young tribal leader named Yu took on the mission of controlling the waters and saving the people. Years passed quickly, and before he realized it, Yu was already 30. One day, while traveling, he suddenly thought about marriage. He worried that if he waited too long, he might miss his chance to have a family. So he said to himself, "If heaven intends for me to marry, it will set me aside." At that very moment, a white fox with nine tails appeared before him. Yu saw it as an omen. He said, "White is the color of my robes, and nine tails are the sign of a rising king." Soon after, he married a local woman named Nu Jiao, who, according to legend, was the human form of that white nine-tailed fox. But Yu stayed with her for only 4 days before leaving again to continue fighting the flood. While Yu devoted himself to saving the world, Nu Jiao took care of everything at home. She managed the household, brought him meals, and later gave birth to their child, allowing Yu to focus completely on his mission. When the flood was finally brought under control, Yu's achievements earned him great honor. He went on to found the Xia Dynasty, remembered as the first dynasty in Chinese history. In the story, the nine-tailed fox is not a seductive spirit or a bringer of disaster, but the image of a loyal wife, supportive, devoted, and deeply tied to the birth of a dynasty. That is why, in early Chinese mythology, the nine-tailed fox was seen as a symbol of blessing, prosperity, and good fortune. Some scholars believe the nine-tailed fox was never just a magical animal. It may have originally been a symbol written in the stars. In ancient China, the sky was divided into 28 constellations. People used them to observe nature, predict seasons, and even interpret the fate of rulers. Among them were two important constellations, Ji and Wei in the east. Ji was associated with wind and foxes, and it was made up of 4 stars. Some people believe this became the origin of the fox's 4 legs. Wei, on the other hand, was linked to rain, fertility, and royal prosperity. It was made up of 9 stars, believed to be the source of the fox's 9 tails. Together, Ji and Wei form the celestial image of the nine-tailed fox, a creature connected not just to animals, but to weather, kingship, and the continuation of royal bloodlines. Some even believe that the Great Flood in ancient China was caused by an imbalance between these two constellations, the very stars that governed wind and rain. To stop the Great Flood, Yu did more than build canals and control the waters. According to legend, he also married the earthly form of the stars themselves, the white nine-tailed fox. She was believed to be the human embodiment of the Qi and Wei constellations, the two star groups that governed wind, rain, fertility, and royal destiny. Through this marriage, Yu was not simply finding a wife, he was gaining heaven's blessing and the divine power to calm the storms and restore order to the land. After the flood was finally brought under control, Yu went on to found the Xia Dynasty, the first dynasty in Chinese history. Behind this legend lies a deeper political idea. The right to rule came from heaven. In ancient China, unusual animals were often seen as messages from heaven, proof that a ruler had divine approval to govern. Because of this, emperors often used omens, sacred creatures, and signs of good fortune to strengthen their political legitimacy. Yu's marriage to the nine-tailed fox was more than romance. It was a form of political theology. He wasn't marrying an ordinary fox, but a celestial being tied to the forces of nature itself. At this stage, the nine-tailed fox was still a symbol of blessing and prosperity. As Yu's wife, she helped bring peace after the flood, ensure the continuation of his bloodline, and play a role in the founding of a dynasty. This is also one reason why later stories so often portrayed the nine-tailed fox as a woman. But as time passed and beliefs changed, the image of nine-tailed fox changed too. She was no longer the loyal wife or the symbol of good fortune. She became something far more dangerous, a seductive foxspirit, known as Huli Jing, capable of charming rulers, destroying kingdoms, and bringing down entire dynasties. So, how did the nine-tailed fox transform from a sacred guardian into Huli Jing, the infamous fox spirit of legend? Before the Chinese Han Dynasty, around 2000 years ago, the nine-tailed fox was seen as an auspicious creature, a symbol of fertility, prosperity, and good fortune. It was a positive, even sacred being in Chinese mythology. But by the time of the Wei Jin and the Northern and Southern Dynasty period, around 1,800 years ago, its image began to darken. For viewers unfamiliar with Chinese history, this was a turbulent era between the Han and the Tang dynasties. China was fragmented into competing kingdoms, wars were frequent, and life was unstable and uncertain. In such times, people often turned to religion and spirituality for comfort. Buddhism and Taoism both gained wide influence, and there was a popular belief that all things can gain a spirit over time, even animals and objects. A bit like this, and this. At the same time, strange and supernatural stories became extremely popular, and the classic of mountains and seas described the nine-tailed fox as a creature that could devour humans. Over time, these ideas merged, and its image gradually became more dramatic. It was during this transformation that the nine-tailed fox gained another name, Huli Jing, the fox spirit. A hulijing is a supernatural fox that has cultivated spiritual power over time. Among them, the nine-tailed fox was believed to be the most powerful form. At that time, a popular story described the fox spirit like this. A fox at 50 years old can transform into a woman. At 100, it becomes a beautiful woman or shaman. It can see things happening 1,000 miles away. It is skilled in seduction and illusion, capable of clouding people's minds. From this point on, the fox spirit became closely tied to women, especially beautiful women, and this association gradually turned into something darker. The idea that female beauty itself could be dangerous. something that could distort men's judgment and lead them astray. Some stories went even further. One even claimed the fox is the embodiment of an ancient licentious woman named Azi, who transformed into a fox. In other words, the fox spirit was sometimes portrayed as a symbol of moral corruption and sexual temptation. But interestingly, fox spirits were not always female. In fact, during the Stay period, there are stories of male fox spirits as well. One tale describes a fox that had cultivated itself into a handsome young scholar. He was highly educated and intellectually brilliant, and even traveled to debate famous scholars of his time. At first, no one could defeat him in argument. Only later did someone investigate his identity, discover that he was a fox spirit, and ultimately killed him. Compared to the female fox spirits, this male version is portrayed in a surprisingly neutral or even somewhat positive light. Intelligent, handsome, and talented, but lacking worldly experience and unable to conceal his sharpness, which eventually led to jealousy and his downfall. By the Tang and Song dynasties, the image of the fox spirit was still largely negative, and in many cases, it escalated to something far more serious, the downfall of rulers and even entire states. Wu Zetian, the only female emperor in Chinese history, was at times accused of being a fox-like seductress of kings. Wu Zetian was originally the empress of Emperor Gaozong of the Tang Dynasty. She was known for her beauty, intelligence, and political talent. During Gaozong's reign, she was already heavily involved in state affairs, helping him govern the empire. After the emperor's death, she gradually consolidated power, eventually taking control of the court and establishing her own dynasty. But many officials opposed her. They saw her rise as ruthless and illegitimate, and some went as far as describing her political ability in supernatural terms, claiming she possessed the same kind of seductive, manipulative power as a fox spirit. In other words, the accusation wasn't just about ambition or politics. It framed her as something dangerous and unnatural, a fox spirit who would not only control the emperor's will, but also threatened to seize the very destiny of the Tang imperial house. By the Ming and Qing dynasties, stories about the nine-tailed fox and the fox spirit had multiple into countless variations. The image was no longer one-dimensional. Fox spirits could be both good and evil, depending on the story. And no figure captures the darker side of this myth more than Daji from the Investiture of the Gods, often described as the ultimate fox spirit in Chinese storytelling, and an Eastern version of the classic femme fatale. In the tale, a nine-tailed fox kills Daji and takes over her body. Once inside the royal court, she gains the favor of the king. Under her influence, the king becomes consumed by luxury and indulgence, neglecting state affairs entirely. Worse still, she was said to have devised cruel tortures to punish loyal ministers, pushing the kingdom into chaos and rebellion, ultimately bringing down the Shang dynasty after more than 800 years. Daji's story pushed the dangerous woman narrative of the fox spirit to its extreme, cementing her as the classic symbol of a seductive destroyer of kingdoms. But this raises a question. Could a woman without real political power truly bring down an entire dynasty on her own? Or was she simply made a scapegoat, an explanation for a ruler's failures, blamed on a beautiful companion who was said to have bewitched him? This kind of femme fatale as the cause of national collapse narrative isn't unique to China. In the West, the Trojan War is often attributed to Helen of Troy. Across cultures, beautiful women have frequently served as convenient scapegoats for political disasters. But not all folk spirits in Chinese stories are dangerous seductresses. In fact, many of them are kind, intelligent, and deeply loyal. To see this side of the myth, we have to turn to Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, a collection of supernatural stories written by Pu Songling. In these stories, fox spirits are often portrayed as gentle and emotionally complex beings, sometimes even more humane than humans themselves. One of the most famous examples is the story of Xiao Cui. Xiao Cui is a young woman who is actually a fox spirit in disguise. She is beautiful, kind-hearted, intelligent, and deeply loyal. Her mother once received a life-saving favor from a man. To repay this debt, Xiao Cui voluntarily marries the man's son, Wang, who is mentally disabled. She never despises him. Instead, she treats him with patience, warmth, and genuine affection. She stays by his side through everything, softening tensions within the family, cleverly avoiding dangers, and bring lightness and joy into an otherwise difficult life. Playful and full of life, she often teases and plays with her husband, turning a quiet household into a warm and lively home. Eventually, she used up her own spiritual power to cure his illness and ensure the family's safety. Only after everything is resolved does she quietly leave. The version of the fox spirit feels almost entirely human, warm, compassionate, and even morally elevated compared to the people around her. Even today, the image of the fox spirit in Chinese culture remains deeply divided and full of contradictions. In everyday language, the term fox spirit, or Huli Jing in Chinese, still carries a negative meaning. It is often used as a label to criticize women, especially those who are attractive, beautiful. In some workplace narratives, women in positions of power may still face unfair accusations, with others implying that they advanced not through talent or effort, but through beauty or personal charm. In this way, the old stereotype continues to echo in modern life. At the same time, in folk belief, the fox has another completely different identity, a benevolent spirit of blessing and fortune. Many people still worship the fox deity, praying for beauty, popularity, and good relations in love and life. And at this point, you may start to notice something important. Whether the nine-tailed fox is seen as an auspicious creature or the fox spirit as a seductive demon, they are about people. It is humans who turn the fox into a symbol of blessing, and humans who turn it into a symbol of danger. Perhaps fox spirits were never really about fox at all. They were stories humans told about desire, fear, beauty, power, and the unknown. In the end, the nine-tailed fox and the fox spirit act like a mirror, reflecting human fears, desires, and hopes for the world around them. That's it for today's look at nine-tailed fox. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.